Good day everyone, my name is Alex and welcome to a new review. Today I'm taking a look at the entry-level HTC Desire 530. So this phone here costs about $160, so not that much, and it is an entry-level phone. Inside we have the Snapdragon 210, which is not a fast processor by any means, 1.5 gigs of RAM and 16 gigs of internal storage. However, this phone takes SD cards, and since it's got Android 6, we can always install an SD card as internal memory, so we are not going to be running out of internal memory anytime soon. The phone is made out of plastic entirely, and we don't get that premium feel that we are used to from HTC phones. However, the back has this splash of color onto it, and it does look different than anything else that we've seen before. Aside from that, we get the 8 megapixel camera, and the camera has this big ring around it, and yes, it does make it look very cool. Aside from that, we just get the flash and the HTC logo, so the phone doesn't look that bad. Continuing on to the right hand side of the phone, we have the volume buttons and the power key. The volume buttons are made out of plastic and they're made out of black plastic, and the power button is made out of some red plastic, and again it does look different than most of the phones that we see these days. Moving at the bottom of the phone, we just have the charging port and nothing else. On the left of the phone, we just have the slot for the SD card and the SIM card, so very easy to use. On top of the phone, we just have a 3.5mm audio jack, and that's about it for the size of the phone. Now moving on to the front of the phone. So the phone has a 5-inch screen with a resolution of 720p. However, this screen has really big bezels, so I don't really like the bezels at all. The viewing angles are okay, but they could be improved a lot. So the viewing angles aren't the best either, and the phone doesn't seem to get that bright. The screen doesn't get that bright, so if you are outside in bright daylight, you're not gonna be able to see the screen that well. Aside from that, we have the front-facing camera there. That's a 5 megapixel sensor, and it does take okay pictures for selfies. And next to that, we have the speaker. At the bottom of the phone, we also have a speaker. However, if you're actually listening to music or any YouTube videos or anything like that, only the bottom speaker will work. So the top speaker is not actually a speaker, so the sound is only coming from the bottom. So keep that in mind if you're looking at this phone thinking that it might have dual speakers. Moving on to the phone's UI. So this phone is running Android 6, and on top of that we get HTC Sense. So the UI, it's not that bad. I mean, the phone doesn't feel that slow even though it has such a slow processor. The settings app looks nice and organized, and I do prefer the settings app from HTC versus, let's say, TouchWiz. But again, that's just a personal preference, and different people will like different things. So yeah, the UI does look pretty cool, and the phone doesn't feel cheap while you're using it. And since we are talking about speed, the internal memory speed and the RAM speed are actually quite good, and I was quite impressed to see that result. Since we are again talking about speed, the Antutu score is at about 22,000, so not a bad score. And on the Geekbench 3, the phone also gets about 1,000 for the multi-core score, so not bad scores for this type of processor. One thing I really enjoyed about the phone was the GPS. So as soon as we open the GPS app, the phone connects, so it takes seconds even inside the house. So yeah, the GPS works really good. Google Maps also works very well, and I haven't had any issues with Google Maps either. Another thing that I liked about this phone was the LTE on it. So this is a 4G device. Now on the speed test app on Wi-Fi we got a normal score, but on LTE I got one of the fastest scores that I have ever seen on a mobile device. So I'm pretty happy to see that onto this cheap device. And since we are talking about connectivity, call quality is also great. The speaker on top of the phone gets really loud, so I was able to hear anyone in any condition. So I was very happy with the speaker onto the phone. Apps like Chrome and Facebook and G+, they all work very well, and I haven't had any issues with them. However, it does take a bit for them to load, but it is normal for a phone with this type of a processor. So pretty normal for one of these phones. Now, on the YouTube app, as you imagine, the maximum resolution is going to be the maximum resolution of the screen, which is 720p. However, the videos do seem to go very smooth, so I haven't had any issues with the YouTube app either. So very happy to see that with most apps that I'm going to use this phone. Now the cameras onto the phone. So on the back we have an 8 megapixel sensor, and on the front we have a 5 megapixel sensor. The unfortunate thing is that the camera, the rear camera, does not record in 1080p, so the maximum recording resolution for the rear camera is 720p, which is a shame, but it is what it is. That's what we get. The camera app looks simple enough. It looks like most camera apps that we've seen on HTC devices, so very, very normal. Some options, not that many options though, and it's very normal for such a cheap phone. The front-facing camera, it's good enough for most situations. I mean, if you're gonna wanna take selfies at nighttime, it's not gonna do great, but in daylight they do look okay. So for video calling and a selfie here and there, the front-facing camera should do just fine. So the phone does look different than most phones. I mean, that splash of color that we get onto the back, it's rather unique, so you're not gonna see that anywhere. The screen, it's not the best. We have really big bezels. The screen doesn't get as bright as I was hoping it would get. The viewing angles aren't that great. The cameras are okay for this price range, I guess. The battery inside, so we only have a 2200 milliamp battery, and me personally, I cannot make it through one day with that battery because I run out of battery around, I don't know, 4 p.m. or so. So for me personally, it's not gonna be enough. If you're not such a heavy user, you will be able to make it, but people like me are never gonna make it through an entire day on a battery charge. So that's also a downside. And the fact that we cannot remove the battery and just put a new one. However, most of the phones these days are like that. So that being said, for $160, I guess the phone it's okay, but you do have a lot of alternatives from China for that much money. However, most of the phones from China are not gonna work on LTE or 4G as good as this phone does. So that's the only downside with most of the phones from China. Hopefully this video is useful. If you have any questions, please leave a comment down below. If you did like it, press the like button, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.